Okay, we are back with another great episode, abbreviated episode of Meeting of the Minds with the great coach, baseball personality, author, Jesse Braverman from Salle Institute. Welcome to the Meeting of the Minds.
Thank you. It's nice to be here.
Absolutely. So, just wanted to circle with you real quick about what you're doing with your team now during this time and how they stay positive and how they make the best of everything going on.
Right. Well, as you know, we haven't been able to be together in person. So what I've done is I've tried to keep in touch with them by email. I mean, the initial thing was the disappointment, putting it lightly, that their entire season was canceled. And I had to be the conveyor of that message. So I had to send them a message that conveyed empathy, but also encouraged them to try to have the most positive attitude possible for this unusual circumstance. So what I basically did was I told them how sorry I was for this turn of events, especially for the seniors who were not going to be able to replace this experience, as that was especially difficult for them. I also pointed out to them that this is a situation in which many people are suffering. Some of them are suffering physically from some pretty serious health challenges. Some of them are suffering emotionally out of anxiety for loved ones who are the most vulnerable. And I wanted them to reach out to people who might need some support or might be deserving of their appreciation for the sacrifices they're making. I have found that it is always therapeutic to put a person in a position to help others than to be on the receiving end of the help. That always, I think, gives that person a purpose and a sense of strength, rather than be operating from a position of weakness. And so I encourage them to do what they could in that respect. You know, because one of the things that we have to do here is become better people. It's not just being a better baseball player. It's also about being a better person. So and in this kind of a situation, I really felt that had to be first. And then I would get to the baseball second. And so when I got to the baseball, we have a team subscription to Collegiate Baseball newspaper. So I started mailing them to various kids and gave them others to send it to after that, because I was sending it to the whole baseball program, not just one team. So I shared that with them, and there are great articles in that publication. It's the only publication in the United States about amateur baseball. It covers college and high school baseball, and they have great teaching articles in there, both for skill development and for conditioning. And I told them that this, for their baseball careers and baseball development, this is an opportunity in many ways, not a disappointment. Now they're going to have time to become a better athlete, to become stronger, to increase their endurance, their balance, and all the physical attributes they're going to need to be a better baseball player. And now they're going to have more time with which to do that. And as far as their baseball is concerned, that has to wait until it's safe to do it. And I don't want anybody risking their own well-being, and perhaps even more so, risking the well-being of other members of their family who might be more vulnerable than they are. We actually had one of our players test positive during the brief time we were together before the season was called off. And that required me personally and some of the others, of the other boys, to be in a mandatory quarantine situation for 14 days. No one had any issues. And the boy that tested positive, he turned out to be fine in the end. His father was a little more seriously ill, but he also recovered. So, but so it actually did touch us directly, and it is, it is frightening. It's extremely frightening because, I mean, my own wife has a lot of underlying health issues, and I was afraid that I had brought it home. Not being a young man myself, in fact, as you know, LaSalle is a Catholic military school, and the boys are extremely respectful. And it is not unusual for them to line up at the end of a routine practice and not only say thank you to me, but to shake my hand. And they were actually getting ready to do just that very thing on the last day we were together when the pandemic was heating up and we knew what was coming. And when they lined up to say thank you and shake my hand, I told them I appreciated their appreciation, but I had to remind them that their coach was on Medicare. And so, actually, it's always a good strategy when possible and if appropriate to inject a little humor into a situation that can be tense. And it was actually the next to the last day of tryout. So the atmosphere was already tense. And that's when our season got terminated. And so I have told them that if summer baseball gets to be played, that I wanted each one of them to send me their schedule and I would be going to their games to support them. There isn't really too much else we can do right now.
Right.
We are limited. And even when I asked them to share the issues of the collegiate baseball newspaper that I mailed them, I told them they could only share it if they could do so safely. I didn't want them to bring it to somebody's house,
right.
And that sort of thing. So this is just such an unprecedented situation. This is extraordinary. And yet it can be a time that we can show our compassion for other people. And it can be a time where we can control our own attitude so that we can somehow derive some advantage from this in terms of our own self-improvement. And then just reminding them that when we face adversity and we come out the other end, we're going to be better off for it. In fact, I actually shared a anecdote with them of one of the former LaSalle players who was drafted by the Mets in 2016 after he graduated college. That pitcher, he was a pitcher. He had been a 4-year varsity player at the school, and he had a lifetime high school record of 28-4. And I went to watch him pitch in Binghamton. He was pitching for the AA team that the Mets have in their organization. And he's a relief pitcher, so I was able to go down to the bullpen, and in the minor leagues, you can actually talk to them. And he shared with me, and I shared this story to the current players. He said to me, "Coach, the best thing that ever happened to me in baseball was going 0-10 as a pitcher in my freshman year at college." And I said, "David, how could that be the best thing that happened to you?" He said, "Well, I never had experienced anything like that before. The team had just gone Division I, and we were a bit overmatched. I had to reach back into my own, realm of what I had to offer. And he said, I just determined to make myself better. And here I am today. And he said, he said, my teammates on this AA baseball team, professional baseball team, these are major league prospects when you get to AA. He said, the ones that got drafted out of high school, they never had experienced adversity. They were just steamrolling their high school opponents. And then when they got here in pro baseball, like everyone does, they experienced some challenges that they had not previously encountered. And the ones that had only that high school experience of domination, many of them fell apart. That's right. And so I reminded the boys that if they could endure what they're going through right now, which is such an unusual challenge for people to have to face, that they will be better for it, as long as they have the attitude that they need to get there. And I also reminded them, and I know you have reminded people of this because you've shared this with me, that as bad as this is for them, there's a lot of people out there that have it worse.
Right.
Much worse. And if they have their health and their family is healthy, that's a lot to be grateful for. And they need to use that position of being okay to help others and to make themselves better in any way they can. And I encourage them, they were doing their schoolwork online at this point when I emailed to them. And I said, you need to be taking care of your academic responsibilities. You're much more independent now than you would be when you're in school. So it's going to be up to you. You're going to have to structure your own day. It's not going to be structured for you. So, there's a lot of growth that can be potentially felt from enduring something like this. And I just tried to remind them of what some of those things were. And I've stayed in touch with them. I think it's important to know that they know that, that they are cared about. Too often when we have a relationship with other people, we only focus on that one aspect that connects us. Yes, I'm their baseball coach, but I should also be a person that cares about them and not just care about their batting average or their earned run average or their running speed or how much are they bench pressing. I should be caring about their overall well-being. And I think I want them to know that and hopefully then show that similar care for other people too,
That's it. Seeing the gold at the end of the rainbow, or the rainbow after the rain, all those cheesy metaphors, but it's very true. Being able to deal with adversity and taking it right from the comeback coach himself with his book. Yeah. Make sure everyone gets it. The Comeback Coach.
Yes. Well, as a matter of fact, I have often shared with this group, which obviously was not with me in the stories that are in that book. But I told them, I said, there is an expression that there's a light at the end of the tunnel, but it's also true that if you're the one in that tunnel, it can be awfully hard to see that light. Right. And I think they have to hear that. I reminded them that what I was encouraging them to do is not easy. This is not easy, but I also added to them, since when is anything good in life easy? If it was easy, it wouldn't be that good.
It's the hard that makes it great. Jimmy Dugan.
Right. That's exactly right. I mean, that's exactly right. And sometimes it's very difficult to persevere, to persist. But when it is the most difficult, that's when we must do it. the most. That's when we need to do it the most. So, I try, and with this particular situation, I was honest with them. I don't know how this is going to end or when it's going to end. There's a lot. One of the things that's so difficult about this is the anxiety of not knowing. And, it may very well be the case that we will not be able to extricate ourselves from this crisis without a effective treatment or a safe and effective vaccine. And neither of those is guaranteed, so this is a very unsettling situation. And I have found that the only way I can personally deal with this is to stay involved. So I'm teaching my students over the phone every day, which is, in 46 years, I have finally discovered something that is more challenging than working with special needs students. And that is working with special needs students over the phone. So, but I find that when I'm actively involved in helping my students, which I'm doing one at a time on the phone, I'm not feeling that anxiety as much because I'm occupied in the task at hand. And I think the boys that are in my baseball program, they can be doing things. I told them that I'm going to a strength and conditioning coach so I can get worse slower. I want them to do those things so they can get better faster.
That's right. That's great.
And so I encourage them. I tell them, I said, look, I'm just trying to stay strong enough so my outfield fungos are going to reach you in the outfield. I need you to get stronger so your line drives over the shortstop's head will end up going between the outfielders. That's
right.
And because many of them are so concerned about their baseball skills, and they are. That's a proper thing to be concerned about because baseball is so difficult. I mean, what other sport is there that you can fail 70% of the time and be considered one of the best in the world at what you do,
right?
Which is hitting a baseball. So yeah, they have to be concerned with their skill, but many of them are not athletic enough to take full advantage of their skills. So they also have to make themselves stronger, and some of them need the mental strength, which I know is your specialty, to develop the work habits and the routine to accomplish that physical development and even that skill development. As we know, baseball, like a lot of sports, is a process. And, when you first start playing the piano, you don't end up in Carnegie Hall tomorrow.
Right.
You're going to have to work at it. And it takes such a long time to get there, both skill-wise and physically, and perhaps, as you well know, mentally. I just keep encouraging them to improve themselves in as many ways as they can. I mean, I coached in the Empire State Games for 16 years. And every year at the opening ceremonies, which was like an Olympics opening ceremony, there was a keynote speaker. And the only one I really remember was the speaker whose talk only lasted 2 minutes. It was Bonnie Blair, an Olympic speed skater. And her message was very quick and to the point. She basically said, be the best that you can be and love what you do. And, neither of those is that easy. And I told the boys, I said, baseball, I assume you're here because you want to be. You might be in a chemistry class because you have to be. So if you're in a place where you want to be, I would assume that you are intrinsically motivated. And I try to motivate my athletes and my students all the time. But in the end, the ones that end up achieving the most are the ones who are self-motivated.
Right.
And I'm trying to get them to take over, and that's when they do take over the motivation, that's when their performance and accomplishments will take off. When they personally take over, then they'll take off. So, that's a time. Sometimes these moments that we're going through now can be periods of great reflection. It gives us time to be a little introspective and evaluate ourselves. And again, I have only one player that has made it to professional baseball, and he's currently the bench coach for the Tampa Bay Rays. He's one step below the manager now. And when he was on my high school team, at the end of a game, 30 minutes later, I'm cleaning up the dugout and nobody's there except me and him. And on that particular day, he had gone 2 for 4. He had 2 hits and 4 at bats. And he'd be sitting there with his head in his hands saying, "Coach, what am I doing wrong?" And I said to him, "Matt, I don't know. But I can tell you this. If you keep doing what you're doing now, you're going to be in Cooperstown. So you'll never have a coach who is as hard on you as you are on yourself. But as long as you don't beat yourself up, keep that characteristic, because that's going to make you as good as you can be." And look where he got to. So, and he is featured in my book. There's a nice picture of him when he was the assistant hitting coach of the Cleveland Indians at Progressive Field. And he invited me out there for batting practice and on the field. And there's a nice photograph there in the book of him. But these are the kind of messages I've been sharing. I don't know. I don't pretend to have the magic formula, but I believe that the things that I've just shared are helpful. I believe they're helpful.
Absolutely. Sometimes the greatest adversity we face winds up being the biggest blessing in disguise, and the exact thing that made us grow the most. Take it from the comeback coach himself. I know you're doing a meeting with the team now, so I'll let you go, but thank you very much, Coach. I appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, Gene. Thank you.
Right.
It's very nice to hear from you.
Absolutely. Take care.
Okay.
Be well.
All right. Okay. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.